Okay, cool. Hello, everybody. This is your host, Christian. And today we have Michael Greil. He's the head of payments at ryd.one. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks, Christian. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's really my pleasure to have you here. And before jumping into today's topics, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience before starting?
I haven't thought of anything in particular. Just test us, use us, let me know how it works, how you feel it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Something we were discussing before organizing this interview was about the innovation of around payments in the fuel industry. And I know that ryd.one is pretty much involved with this. Can you share a little bit more about your role and what you're doing there?
Yeah, I'm since since November, and I'm shaping basically the finance and tech roadmap for payment methods there. And we have different applications running. So most of you just know the web app or the native applications. But as we're talking about innovations, there's lots of ongoing topics in the OEM, in the car segment, where I can share, for example, there is challenges of integration of authentication processes. So we're starting to shift from a very inconvenient 3DS, very, a bumpy road to a very lean, delegated authentication process. And this requires, of course, a lot of technical adjustments, the right partners, and a lot of testing. And yeah. That is one of the biggest innovations we're currently working with.
So basically to remove the friction from the 3DS system and have something you can manage directly.
Exactly. And for that, one of our investors, Mercedes, is basically here on the leading part, bringing in delegated authentication devices in the car itself. How Apple, how Google is utilizing your native phone applications, right, to do delegated authentication. So now the in-car payment will utilize this as well.
That sounds like super cool. It's like put your hands on the wheel and authenticate yourself.
Yeah, there are different ones, I think, starting with fingerprint, but there's, no end, right? You can use camera, face recognition, you can use all kind of biometric systems that are basically certified in the end.
Okay. Right now I know you're focusing on the fuel part, but you also told me you're trying to expand to washing center, buying directly inside the fuel station.
Yeah. Think about Ride as kind of a marketplace, right? Not from only the selling, like a platform space. So we have a mission basically around the fuel station. We want to basically improve the customer's life with a lot of convenient features. And of course, due to the ongoing pandemic, the security topic or the health topic was one of the factors. But we have also topics like motorbikes who don't want to go in the store. We have family in the car, pets, animals in the car, lots of use cases where we can actually create benefits around it. And the same topic, if the guys are not really want to go into the station because they're on a run or they just like us as a product, right? So to check it out on your mobile phone. We're thinking of enriching the services as even more, right? Why should you then go in the store or do some complicated process to get your car wash? So we're looking and keep an eye open for all additional services that we can basically offer in a very convenient way to our customers. And there's also, I mentioned the platform approach. Most of you may know only that we are selling fuel, but we're also selling H2. We're also selling gas. Basically, we are looking, of course, and working already on an electric roadmap. So all kinds of future energy will be supported as well.
Okay, so the idea is really to become a pan-European platform that brings you somehow closer to the fuel station. You can do whatever you want, whether it's buying fuel, buying food, or just washing your car.
Exactly.
Okay.
And currently we have a very fragmented market, right? Lots of local products, I would say, local brand, digital products in place. And our focus is really to the convenience of the customer, right? Across Europe, also if you go on holiday, if you travel, you want to use the same system, same payment methods, same logic, convenience that you use for your weekly or monthly fueling experience at home, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because you mentioned that you want to be like your scope or your focus is going to be Europe-wide. Like, how are you approaching this? I guess you have a lot of challenges, like from just, working on the German market, working on the Austrian market to expand to Italy, for example.
So our business model is basically we sell the fuel to the customer. So that requires, of course, licenses for fuel selling, which is a challenge. We always have challenges if we approach the local markets to fit in or to fulfill the invoicing, the whole billing process requirements that come along. So we have recently we're very close to go live in Portugal. And they have quite a lot of requirements, for example, as this dedicated case. And there are the challenges, basically, to manage all this kind of implementations, not only requirements you need to ask additionally from the customer, but to really understand the market. What is the customer used to? There's a specific NIF, a tax ID, right, that he's used to give on the supermarket to the cashier system that he can later use it for the tax. So all these kind of requirements, of course, need to be implemented once we go in a local market. And I think, having this in a pan-European approach, that is definitely a challenge to really get the right market insights upfront and during the process, to not waste resources, do it over and over and restart again.
Okay, that's quite...
And the other topic, you asked me about regulation. The other challenge is, of course, in general, regulation, right? How to deal with payment, how to process the payments, and every country itself, we need to look very carefully into this, how we process the payment, that we are basically on the safe side from a regulatory perspective. This is also definitely a challenge sometimes.
Are you focusing,
especially if we look more into the marketplace construct?
Are you focusing mainly on B2B or B2C transactions? I think this might be interesting from the regulation perspective.
We are providing the biggest pan-European network for B2C transactions. That is our main focus, but we are also doing business on a B2B.
Okay. Because you mentioned the struggles of the expansion, like having to deal with regulation. Do you have like a playbook that can help you scaling or expanding to other countries? So right now it's you really need to double check every country, and this right now it's really slowing down your expansion.
A great question. Actually, we are kind of building this playbook currently on the run. We have done market research and what we learned basically, just doing market research can still bring the wrong results. So you have to do market research for a very specific, for the fueling purpose, for the normal e-commerce and mobile usage purpose. What kind of payment methods are they actually using? Are they actually even interested in using a mobile payment method, etc.? And then additionally, very local requirements. For example, the invoicing process is the most challenging one usually. While everybody is used to just go in the store, pay with whatever you want to pay, and just get a receipt, or even don't even forget about the receipt, right? On the e-commerce or the mobile channel, we have quite a lot requirements to really provide a regularly correct invoice locally. And just a fun fact, for Poland, for example, you need to rent an office and really maintain local hardware printers that are anyway connected to the local fiscal authority to streamline your real-time transactions to that. But still, you need to print the stuff in that local office. And that are the funny learnings during the way,
So you have to integrate with a lot of local systems also.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's I guess that's adding a lot of effort on every expansion. Like how you're approaching this, like you have internal teams, like internal members of your teams, like building, I don't know, the invoice integration for Poland or for Italy or for Portugal.
We have our own IT stack, so to say. We are our own, I call it orchestrator. We have multiple payment service provider connections, and also I call them external invoicing solutions or invoicing providers. Of course, we aim to align a bit our requirements that the providers can cover multiple markets, so you reduce basically amount of integrations. But current learning is more and more that if you need a specific, fulfill a very specific requirement, mostly you get only one provider, unfortunately.
So yes,
but exactly, and these teams are working in a Scrum mode, so they're doing everything from integrating PSPs, local APMs, or invoicing solutions in the end.
Interesting. Another thing you mentioned was open banking is something that could help you with the integration across the entire Europe, or?
Yeah, imagine our business. Every country, every oil brand, you have to make supply contracts, right? And there's very limited space of profit. So we're in the reseller business, we're in the chain sale business, and so that means you have really a high volume and a low margin business running. So you have the challenge to find ways of payment that support actually this business model at scale. And obviously, not only from a financial perspective, but also from the idea itself, from the settlement perspective, I'm super interested in looking into open banking because it might solve a lot of our challenges right now. So it is way cheaper than usual. It is instant settlement, at least if we look a bit into the future, right? Today's not everybody is on instant SEPA. Not every bank is capable of doing it. The prices are not super regulated currently, so still a customer could face extra charges if we do instant SEPA via the rails, right? And all this we want to, of course, avoid. We want the customer to just pay what he would have paid on the pump. So we are working always with pump prices.
Because the idea, I guess, is to reduce the amount of it's like the credit card burden, because currently you're paying fees on the credit card processor and all this sort of things.
It really depends. So we have MasterCard, right? One of our investors, a very, very strong partner, and we still believe in credit cards and debit cards, and they have benefits that other payment methods don't have, for example, from a customer protection point of view as well, right? And I think it's the big thing, like for all e-commerce shops in the end, it's the mix. You need to always offer the customer his preferred payment methods. I don't see that credit cards will die in the next years. Definitely not, even if open banking will hit the market. So I think there will be some shifts, but still we definitely are planning to support and even improve the credit card flow. There are innovations ongoing like click to pay. You might have heard, especially there. And then there are where I'm very interested in also delegated authentication SDKs that can be used by merchants. So from us, right, that are certified and can actually take away the 3DS burden. Last conferences I heard about Fido. Let's see how this is ongoing. So they're really cool, I would say, steps along the roadmap of the next couple of months. I'm really interested.
You mentioned you're integrating with different payment service providers, I guess one for each country or something, like depending on the availability.
No, that is, but sounds, actually it is just historical. So every time a new requirement comes in, or we are not happy with the existing service we got, there was a shift and an implementation. So I cannot say much about the strategy because I was not part of the company that time. But in the end, the existing integrations are acting still as backup and as options for ramping on new payment methods or APMs in kind of a smart routing way in the future. So I'm looking from a strategic point of view currently in payment orchestration, for example. Currently, we are our own orchestrator. But as you mentioned, yes, costs a lot of IT effort. We're still a scale up. We don't have like 50 developers like running the business, right? So you always have to prioritize very, very clearly what you do next. And if, bugs happen, bugs need to be fixed, everything is basically has influence on your timeline. So whatever can help us, I'm interested here as well.
Something that you mentioned is that you're the merchant of record, so you're the one actually taking the money from the customer and billing the customers. How does it work from a tax perspective? Like, it's part of your finance system, like you're taking care actually of doing tax declaration in every country?
Yeah, basically we're a clear reseller. We do this whole process in real time. And we're the merchant of record, and we own the claim. We create the invoice, send it to the customer. So like a normal e-commerce shop, I would say.
Is there any particular strategy that you follow on selecting your payment service provider? Like, is there anything in particular that you look for? Apart, you mentioned you have a strong collaboration with MasterCard, but
in general, so how I approach this, of course. So we have I think 3 major requirements. We want to scale local payment methods very fast. So obviously the provider who gives me the easiest and best integration in kind of a white label streamlined way is basically preferred. Second, important is obviously the part of the transaction costs, because as this scales, this is the only important cost left. And last point is, of course, IT effort overhead. So how much maintenance, how basically young or modern is a payment service provider? I worked a long time for SIX before, and was also in the payment world, and we learned very quickly there that when it really comes to the detail level, right, there's a huge differentiation between payment service provider, and also I really want to mention the support. This is a very important factor of choosing your payment service provider. I see it in our current stack that there is a huge difference contacting the different ones in scope of how fast you get your answer, how good the quality of the answer is actually that you then get. And so this is definitely also a part of selection. And finally, also the UI that they provide, or the additional services that they can do, right? So there are common services, features like pay by link, like additional like payment default recovering, like smart routing for bigger players, right? Tons of services, especially also monitoring, alarming, analytics, reconciliation, everything that really helps to automate, streamline our business is a point of prioritization then in the end.
Can you tell a little bit more about like how the integration actually works? So you mentioned there is an IT team that supports you, but I wonder more about your current finance stack, whether it's something that you decide to build inside to basically run your operations, or it's something that maybe you decide to work together with a partner.
How the integration work, or
in general, like the
usually,
flow of the payments
yeah.
inside your platform. So if I go to a full station and then I buy something.
Yeah. I need to start at the two types of checkout experiences we have. So we have a process that is called prepay, and there's a process called that is postpay. Postpay is in the DACH region the most common way of fueling. It's basically a pure sale transaction. So you go to your favorite fuel station, you start fueling, and then decide, I want to basically quickly pay with the app instead of going into the shop. So you can still decide what you do, right, at that moment. What you do there is you just select the pump from the station where you are. So we identify your location, or you select it manually. You select your pump, we read the price of the pump, and we take basically then this purchase for us. So that means you pay with your favorite payment method. So we recently also, I would say, cut it 2/3 of the whole time that our customer need to wait for payment by introducing Apple and Google Pay. It's working pretty good for our case. So I'm really happy with that. And yeah, basically that's all you need to do. You see your final confirmation page, your fuel amount, you confirm, you follow the instructions if there are instructions required for the dedicated payment method that you use, and then you're done. Then we say payment confirmed, you can leave the station. And the other process is a prepay process. You find it maybe in unattended fuel stations, or if you go in other countries like Denmark, like Portugal, like Spain, there are fuel stations where you need to authorize upfront. So what you do is we offer you a selection of amounts that you can choose from. You say, okay, I want to pay 100. I want to fuel for max 100 euros. What happens behind the scene is we basically authorize, if you use a credit card, the 100 euros on your card. If it works, then you're eligible to get as much as fuel that is worth for 100 euros, right? So once the fueling stops at 80 euros, for example, we do a partial capture and the transaction is done.
That's, it sounds like coming from the future where you don't have to leave your car.
This is, in the end, I can also mention this again, in the in-car experience. Some of your listeners may already drive around with the Mercedes, knowing that there is this pop-up message coming in where they have select some stuff. But Mercedes recently launched the Fuel and Pay app. So it's a real in-car app that is basically improving the flow even more. And it's a very nice experience for the driver to really pay it in car. Imagine other countries where you have still people serving you, so basically fueling for you. There you really don't need to get out of your car anymore.
Crazy. You mentioned that you're also looking forward the EV industry, so like electrical cars. I know that the market is a little bit more complex because you need to integrate really at an European level. Is this something you're looking into right now? Or
I would say we have started looking into it. It's not that we still need to dive deeper into the topic, but we already made some choices, I would say. You know that the market is also fragmented with the cards versus mobile solutions, so we are going definitely mobile only. So no plastic card anymore involved, and of course we want to choose a player that is covering more markets, not only one local market. So we're not starting to aggregate a lot of different players again.
What about the challenges that you're facing? Are they probably like your main focuses for the next 6 months as a head of payments?
Yeah, I really touched it already. So my main challenge is I still providing profitable payment processes to the company, and especially closing the gaps of payment offerings in dedicated markets. So I'm looking into extend in the APMs, especially in Benelux, for example, Switzerland and other countries. I'm looking into the orchestration part to really reduce IT effort, reduce interfaces, maintenance, QA costs, a lot of these kind of things by on the same side ramping on.
So you mentioned,
I think this.
You mentioned the orchestrator part. Like, how should it look like, or like, what is the goal behind the orchestration? Like orchestration payments, orchestrating your integration with a specific country.
Yeah, not so currently. I am not looking for a country-specific setup. So I'm really looking for a provider that can offer me our required payment methods and processes for each country, and supplying me with an authentication, basically a state-of-the-art authentication methods. If we talk about credit cards, for example, and monitoring, and especially also the reconciliation part. Yeah. Everything that helps reduce our own labor costs and processes there, save time for the important things, right? To build better product experience, better, nicer features.
Do you feel the market is somehow offering this solution right now, or you feel you need to spend a lot of time searching and looking for this?
As I'm currently really looking into that in detail, it's not that easy. It seems like everybody's offering everything. And if we go to the bottom of this, then usually there's always a timeline attached. So we plan for it, we might have it, or the wished providers are not there. So it's still in a shaping process. There is no provider out there where you can say, okay, hey, this is the one that is better than everybody else. So he really needs to fit the requirements. And we have, especially with our MasterCard investor, we have special requirements that need to be considered. So that is definitely part of the challenge. Other challenges in the payment realm I can talk about is, for example, that you mentioned the marketplace aspect. So once we start selling different services, like car wash, like other topics, maybe even pick and collect or snacks or whatever we think of, right? You have to take care about the split payment again. So what other, I would say, big providers are offering as marketplace solution, that the customer payment gets splitted, or you work around and introduce maybe a wallet capability in your app, so you can just make 2 transactions out of it. Customer just filling it, and these are all like experiments we are currently looking into. Currently, I have my doubts if customers are really willing to preload a fueling app. So that's just my current thought is I'm not sure if we really going into the fueling in the wallet area, but I'm open, of course. I'm really looking for exchange, how people have solved it. I know that a lot of partners that are aggregating other services all around parking, especially loading, a lot of, I would say, low amount services. They're working a lot with wallet solutions to basically drive down the payment costs.
Yeah, have you thought about like developing an like in-car solution? Like basically have your own car, issuing your own card.
Mm-hmm. We have actually thought about this. We continue to think about it, but I would say we just haven't found the right solution for us yet.
You mentioned the marketplace. Like, how are you managing the payouts, or how do you plan then to manage the payouts to? In this case, I guess for the fuel is a bit different because you have contracts and probably have monthly payments with the fuel supplier.
So currently we have a classic PSP acquiring setup. We currently don't have a marketplace in place because we don't need one. We have currently no additional services right now that we cannot run through our existing rails. And but if this comes, of course, into the game, we need to look for a product to actually fulfill it There are several providers out there. I actually, with my last project in Sixt, I was tasked to implement one powering basically the mobility platform, the scooters and all the other providers.
Okay.
Exactly.
I guess it's time to wrap up. So now it's time for the rapid round of questions. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and just take your time to answer them. Stu, the first question is, what is the best piece of advice that you have ever received? It could be a business advice or a career advice.
No, I think it was my first boss after I joined Sixt. The first advice is really understand in detail what you are responsible for. I think I was leading a product team there responsible for billing and payment of DriveNow, and it really helps if you really know low level what's going on to shape basically new ideas and really speed up the process.
Next question. What book would you recommend to our audience? Is there any book that you read right now that was important for your career, for example?
Unfortunately, not a specific book. Last books I read was like some of Simon Sinek and Sapiens, but not very industry specific books. I would say more related to podcasts and I would say.
Is there like
research.
any podcast that you would suggest?
Basically next to this one, of course. I am listening to Payment and Banking, Payments on Fire, Rocket Ship, Masters of Scale. So that are the ones where I hope that someone actually is sharing deep insights about local mobile payments and how to scale these businesses.
I didn't know there was. I mean, I know there is a community around payments, but I didn't know there were like podcasts around payments, like Payments on Fire. Okay, next question. I mean, you just suggested like a good podcast. Next question is, if you could travel back, what's the advice you will give to your personal self?
Travel back how far?
Let's say 10 or 20 years.
10 or 20 years. To answer. I wouldn't do anything different, probably. So.
And last question: is there anything you're learning, like specifically right now? Is there anything where you're spending a big chunk of your time?
Actually, quite a lot, because changing from a big corporate again to scale up, includes a lot of more responsibilities. So, learning quite a lot from the tech part, from the business part, from investor part. Lots of learnings currently.
Cool. So if people want to find out more about Ryd, they can check the website ryd.one. And if people want to get in touch with you, Michael, what's the best way? Okay.
I think the best way is just
LinkedIn.
Cool.
Michael, thank you for joining me today. It was a pleasure, and I'm wishing you the best.
Thank you, Christian. Nice.